Welcome to the Rock Fight, where we speak our truth, slay sacred cows, and sometimes agree to disagree. This is an outdoor podcast that aims for the head. I'm Colin, and today I'm rolling solo with some thoughts after attending the Functional Fabric Fair up in Portland, Oregon. And then Doug Schnitzbahn and producer Dave and I are going to say goodbye to an outdoor industry legend. But before we get to that, if you missed Tuesday's episode of The Rock Fight, go back to hear BioLite founder and CEO Jonathan Cedar in his first conversation after BioLite acquired Goal Zero. If you missed Wednesday's episode, you missed Owen Comerford and producer Dave and I running through tariffs, the REI apology, Jack Wolfskin getting acquired, and a killer parting shot by our own producer Dave. Go listen to that. And right now, it's time for you to subscribe to both The Rock Fight and also to Open Container, the newest Rock Fight podcast that is hosted by outdoor industry legend Doug Schnitzbahn, who you're going to hear later on this podcast. All you need to do is tap the follow button on whatever podcast app you're listening to us on, and then look up Open Container. Do the same thing over there. Lastly, subscribe to our weekly newsletter, News from the Front, by heading to rockfight.co and clicking Join the Mailing List. Stick around. We'll be right back. Hey everyone, before we keep going here, I need to tell you about our teammates at Darby Communications. Like I've been telling you, if you run an outdoor, an endurance, or an active lifestyle brand, there is no better PR and digital marketing belay partner or drinking buddy than Darby. They can help your business reach new heights, and they might just keep you from falling on your ass. Since we started working with Darby, more and more people, and this is an important point now, guys, I want you to hear me on this, more and more people have reached out to us here at The Rock Fight because of that messaging. Look, guys, I'm dead serious. If they can help us, they can help anybody. Hit them up at darbycommunications.com. Do it today. All right, today's opening shot is presented by Garage Grown Gear, your hub for ultralight gear. Learn more by heading to garagegrowinggear.com. And like I said, stick around to the end of this episode where Doug Schnitzbahn and producer Dave will help me eulogize outdoor industry legend Bob Woodward. But I'm recording this on Friday, April 18th, and it's going to be released today because I spent yesterday in a bit of a haze after I got back in the wee hours of Thursday morning from Portland, Oregon. And I'd like to normalize saying which Portland of which we speak. Portland, Maine is out there, everyone. And for many, I'm not making this up, for many, it's the superior Portland. I didn't decide that, just some people think that. So we should always say the state that we visited when we're referencing Portland from here on out. So I was in Portland, Oregon, and I'm just back from Portland, Oregon, and I was up there this week attending the Functional Fabric Fair. You're going to hear more about why I was there in the coming weeks. What I can tell you is that producer Dave and I were working on a very special episode of The Rock Fight, which we centered around being at Functional Fabric. Now, there's a really good chance you're listening to this episode and you work in the outdoor industry, and you may not know about the Functional Fabric Fair because there are a handful of events that really kind of take up the oxygen in the old outdoor industry room when it comes to events. Launched in 2018, the easiest way to describe Functional Fabric is that it's a sourcing show. If you work at a retailer or a brand and you go to a trade show or regional rep show to shop or sell your products, this is an event where the people who actually make the stuff that those products are made out of go to sell their goods. So you'll see representatives of Patagonia and Viari and Mountain Hardware and everyone else rolling around, but they'll be the materials folks, the product developers, the sustainability directors, the heads of innovation. Some of you may not know this, and I've said this on the pod a bunch of times before, but the brand name on the chest of your favorite garment, they didn't make the fabric or the trims or the zippers or the buttons of your favorite garment. Those are all sourced from the companies who exhibit at a place like Functional Fabric. Now, these types of shows have existed for a long time, these types of sourcing shows, and the difference with this one being that there is a focus on higher performance fabrics, which makes it more attractive for outdoor brands who are looking for qualities that are demanded by outdoor consumers. And like I mentioned, you're going to hear more about what we did at FFF in the coming weeks, but I wanted to give you my instant reaction to the show as a whole while the memory was still fresh, because man, I loved what this show is. If you heard Doug Schnitzbahn and I talking about the Outdoor Market Alliance media event back in February, you know that I like it when it's obvious what something is. When someone says to me, hey, should I attend that? I think the answer should be simple. It should be yes or no. That's what I liked about that OMA event, and that's what I liked about attending Functional Fabric. Events for our industry are such a prevalent topic, and they're all so colored by what outdoor retailer used to be that I still find it kind of a novelty when something just delivers on the most basic premise. And Functional Fabric has that. If you're looking to meet with people who make fabrics, fibers, and yarns in order to make something else, well, you should consider attending. Now, I realize that's probably not the vast majority of you listening to this, so here's what else I'll say. The simple approach is how you should decide what events you want to attend. Figure out your priorities and plan accordingly. And that's pretty easy to do, right? Retailers and reps, hit those regional shows. Media and PR, head to OMA. Sourcing people, hit a sourcing show like Functional Fabric. Now, where the waters get muddied is the big national events. And for a long time, I was on the front line of that problem. When I was a director of sales, I wanted to be able to say to the brand I worked for that we went to a big national trade show and spent all of that money because our forecast and revenue depended on it. Only no matter where I worked, that was never the case. And in talking to others who attend these events, that seems to be the case across the board. Retailers can't align on the right time to have a show because some will tell you it's better to see the pomp and circumstance of the brands when the season kicks off, and others will say it's better to have the show when selling season is over. And right now, the big shows are being held smack dab in the middle, so it's more of a, hey, let's make everyone miserable approach. If you're an in-house sales rep, you can just ride the wave of your employer and show up wherever you're told to go, but a lot of brands rely on independent sales agencies, which are all small businesses. And those small businesses can sell on behalf of as few as 3 or 4 brands, or in some cases, upwards of more than 10. Now, these are commission-based sales reps, which means they have to pay all of their own expenses to get to go to the sales meetings, the regional shows, and yes, national trade shows. And depending on where that national show is and where the reps are coming from, you might have reps coming in who don't even have retailers there. So now they're paying out of pocket for a flight, hotel, and meals, and they don't even have meetings to attend that will help their own business. Now, of course, there are exceptions to everything I just said, depending on the brand and what they ask of their agencies. But the point is, if you're going to show up to something billed as for the industry, whether that's outdoor retailer past or present, Switchback, or even the summit at the Outside Festival, which apparently is offering financing for its tickets, seriously, it's best to have a clear reason why you would want to attend. Coming off the heels of OMA and Functional Fabric and looking ahead to these national shows has me trying to figure out what the simple answer is to attend the bigger events. And the one I come back to is the industry vibe, which before I would have outright rejected. If you look back at the comments made by the various archetypes that show up to a big trade show, there's very little alignment. Some want to see product. Some want to see marketing. Some want to have a sales meeting that's then followed up with another sales meeting after the show ends. By the way, I can't tell you how often that happens. Like, hey, let's meet at the big show. Do a big line review. And the takeaway is, hey, yeah, let's get together again after the show. Actually, if there's consistent value in having these shows, it's in the gathering itself. And it seems that everyone says that we need to hang out with each other, that the gathering is what we've been missing the past few years. I mean, take a look through LinkedIn and other social media posts, and you'll find plenty of better in-person hashtags and everyone clamoring to get together. So you'd think the lesson from everything the past few years will be rooted in that, but still the shows are marketing themselves as the place to get business done. To be honest, I'd kind of love it if Switchback just leaned into the vibe and the industry hangout component was like, hey man, yeah, come to Switchback. Hang out with your outdoor homies. We'll have coffee in the morning. We'll have beer in the evening. We'll have product to look at all day. Plus, you'll get to see that dude that you only know because your booth was next to his booth for like 4 straight ORs and you felt like best friends, but you haven't seen him since 2018. It's an outdoor reunion at Switchback. Personally, I think that is the upside of that show, but I guess we'll see in June. Look, the longer I do this podcast, the more I see how our outdoor industry can become the best version of itself. And I know that right now we have bigger fish to fry when it comes to the problems we're facing and the threat to our economy and public lands. But all of those are square in the zone of where the outdoor industry can have a voice and maybe have an impact. But one day, presumably, we'll get back to some form of business as usual. And my hope is that perhaps we will more broadly accept the fact that when it comes to gathering and getting business done, we have all the pieces. And we know that getting together is crucial. And I do want to ask anyone who organizes one of these events, please, for the love of God, no forced fun. Don't make us do activities. This is the outdoor industry. Like I said before, give us coffee in the morning, give us meeting times during the day, and give us beer in the evening. That's all we need. We'll figure it out from there. We have the shared experience of going outside and making fun of Boulder to break the ice. We don't need anything else. So anyway, thumbs up to the Functional Fabric Fair. Not really a show that everyone needs to go to, but I'm glad it exists, and it's simple to decide if you should attend it, and it helps fill out the calendar of shows that I understand why they happen. All right, my little rant right there. You know who brought you that? It was Garage Grown Gear, who has new ultralight backpacking gear coming onto their site each week. So, you want to know what's new lately? Over on Garage Grown Gear, they've got American-made merino wool hiking socks from farm to feet, made with U.S.-grown wool. They got Nemo Equipment's new ultralight pulse quilt. using endless promise materials, which can be recycled at the end of its lifetime, and new handmade ditty bags and pouches from Backcountry Exposure. Garage Growing Gear brings you the best in ultralight backpacking gear, from the most innovative to the most head-scratching and quirky solutions to problems you never knew you had while out backpacking. A toothbrush that fits on the end of your spoon handle. Yes. A bidet that doubles as a shower. Yes. Make sure you don't touch any undesirables before you shower. A Dyneema cover to cover the spoon itself. Yes. By the way, speaking of functional fabric, I got to hang out with the Dyneema people while at Functional Fabric. Great folks. Excited to talk to them more. Cool brand. Anyway, they've got it all over at GGG. Check out Garage Grown Gear to discover the latest. That's garagegrowngear.com to discover the latest. Check them out today. All right, so basically we're going to do an extended parting shot today. It's my conversation with Doug Schnitzbahn and producer Dave. We spend a few minutes remembering the great Bob Woodward. I actually found out while we were at Functional Fabric Fair that Bob Woodward passed away. If you don't know who Bob Woodward is, the rock fight doesn't exist without Bob Woodward. He founded Snooze in the 80s. It was the original sort of industry trade magazine, kind of commenting on the business of the outdoors, and a really important figure in the history of the outdoor industry. I was not aware that he had passed away. He lived in Bend, Oregon, was in his 80s, so it's not overly surprising, but also very sad, and we wanted to take a minute to honor who Bob Woodward was. Doug Schnitzbahn, as you hear during our conversation, actually wrote for Snooze in the post-Bob Woodward days. I didn't know that. You'll hear I discovered that as we were having this conversation. And producer Dave, who also has been in the industry a long time, definitely has some thoughts on the role Snooze has played in the industry and in the history of the rock fight. So let's get into that conversation right now and then get you to your weekend, everybody. All right, I'm here with Doug Schnitzbahn, host of Open Container on the Rock Fight Podcast Network. Producer Dave is here as well. What's going on, boys?
Hey.
Hello.
So this past week, producer Dave and I were at the Functional Fabric Fair, and we had a chance to connect with the guys from the Utah State Outdoor Archive, Chase and Clint. And we were chatting with them, and we brought up Snooze, and they let us know that Bob Woodward had passed away, the legend of Bend, Oregon, the original founder of Snooze. And I passed away early March. He was 85. He'd been battling Parkinson's. But according to a absolutely lovely tribute that I'll link in the show notes by Kathy Carroll in Ben Magazine, he was active up to the very end. You know, anyone who's been around for the industry, been around the industry for a minute, can probably tell that Snooze is one of the, one of the influences on the rock fight. Unfortunately, I never got a chance to meet Bob. I don't know, Dave, did you ever get a chance to meet Bob?
No.
Yeah, neither did I. So, Doug, you did.
Yes, I did at OR, and he was all the legend he was supposed to be.
How so? Like, why do you like? So the guy's a legend because of Snooze. Like, why was Snooze important, Doug? Like, from a journalist perspective, what was important about Snooze?
I think what's important about Snooze is it sort of created the outdoor industry, right? I think before someone reports on something, it doesn't really exist in a way, right? It's like the proverbial tree falling in the forest. And the great thing about Bob and Snooze is Bob was the real deal. You know, he was a pioneering mountain biker, pioneering Nordic and backcountry skier, pioneering paddler. And then he decided that there was actually some such thing as an outdoor industry, and it needed someone covering it, holding its feet to the fire, and reporting on what was going on with it. One thing I love about that is I really feel that what you're doing, what we're doing, Rock Fight, is really picking up in the kind of stuff he would like, being irreverent and still reporting on business. I think we're following right in his legacy here.
Dave, when did you first encounter Snooze? Because I was definitely in that. I was probably more in the Michael Hodgson era of Snooze by the time I came into the industry, mid-2000s, and started reading it online and those kinds of things. Were you about the same, or did you get some of the earlier ones?
A little bit earlier. I got to the industry at the late 90s, early 2000s, so it just kind of started the handover. But it was clear, and I think it was part of the attractiveness of the industry that it had this kind of centralized voice that didn't sound like a tech magazine, or kind of like the traditional B2B that I had seen. Some of the advertising kind of magazines were pretty straightforward. Yeah. This had a real sharpness to the voice that was kind of fun to read, and you just didn't see that very often.
Yeah, I think we're at a point now where there's probably a lot more people who don't remember Snooze maybe than do, or we're going to get to that point sooner rather than later. I feel terrible that we haven't covered this story, and I mean, I feel kind of even worse. I really haven't heard anyone else in the industry talk about it. Snooze sort of ended up kind of going out with a whimper. Ended up getting acquired by Outside, which became Outside Business Journal, and within it felt like a blink of an eye, it was gone. Did you feel that gap, Doug? Especially, I know you never really wrote on the industry side, right? You were more on the adventure side of things, but like how did you?
Oh,
did
no,
you cross
I
over?
wrote for Snooze quite a bit. I was able to.
Oh, you did?
In the Michael Hodgson era, yeah. Michael Hodgson and Teresa Gnoin took over Snooze from Bob in the early 2000s, I believe. And they certainly helped steer me into the industry and got me writing a lot of great pieces, about the outdoor business. So I thank them a lot. And that was all in the legacy of Bob Woodward. But the crazy thing for me about Bob was I did not realize at first, until later on, and I talked to him about this at one point, I did not realize he wrote this pioneering mountain biking book. This Sports Illustrated Guide to Mountain Biking it came out in 1991. It was the only guide to mountain biking out there. And I had it. And I did not realize it was the same guy at first, the first time I met Bob. But this bike, Bob started mountain biking, they call him one of the founders of it, right? And when we were mountain biking in Massachusetts on just crappy steel frame giant iguanas riding in broken glass and rocks and everything, it wasn't really a sport yet. It was just something dumb to do.
Yeah.
And then finally there was this book out about mountain biking where you could read it and get a little insight on, how to fix a derailleur or what it was. So it made it feel like something. And I didn't know he had written it until, a couple of times later when I met him. And then all I could talk to him about was mountain biking and crappy old bikes and crappy old trails and the beauty of riding a suspensionless bike, which only few people appreciate. And Bob was one of them.
I'm one of them. So you don't need a suspension. Come on. I didn't know that you wrote for Snooze. I mean, I think when you look now, I mean, do you feel like the industry doesn't even it's just kind of like the memory's been wiped in a way. I just doesn't, are there those who kind of are lamenting, do you feel like, Doug, the loss of that over the last 5-10 years? Or do you feel like people just kind of forgotten that it even existed?
I mean, I think it goes hand in hand with everything fragmenting, right? Everything sort of falling apart with the outdoor industry in general. I think that was the idea of when Bob started Snooze, was bringing it together, right? I think have people reporting on it, as I said before, it doesn't really exist, right?
Yeah,
so
right.
I think people do miss it. People are often asking and lamenting that there is no, third-party, serious journalistic entity reporting on the outdoors.
Until now.
Until until we start chucking rocks at people, yeah.
Dave, about a year or so ago, we got the chance to get our hands on a few old issues of Snooze because of Chase and Clint and the folks at Utah State, and you actually did a little bit of a recurring column for a few weeks anyway on some outdoor history stuff. And I've talked about some of that on the pod before, but just tell the listeners a little bit about what it was like going through some of those and the sort of the maybe recurring themes we see in the industry. And then I think that then we can get into Doug's anecdote he told us about before we hit record. But what were some of your takeaways from some of the things you learned reading those old issues?
Well, again, I think what you got when you went, especially some of the earlier issues, is you got a peek into somebody's brain who had an opinion, a definite opinion of what was going on in the industry, right? It was not couched in polite language.
That's true.
If he didn't like something, he said it straight up. If he thought something looked shady, he called it shady, right? And you talk about the issues. Yeah, the main issues going on were are brands being true to the core outdoor? Is fashion relevant? Are we being sustainable?
Equity, DEI, basically.
Is there a place for manufacturing here? Yeah, it's remarkably similar, but all delivered with a real point of view. He also really put in the work and had the trust of people in the industry to talk to him, and he was definitely the center of the rumor mill, right, where he would be talking about what's going on. And again, I think as a spiritual guide to where we've come from with the rock fight, there's no doubt we're hopefully picking up the mantle of that type of discussion going on, knowledgeable from the inside, but still able to kind of give a third party's view of what's going on, a little more clarity to it. But long live Snooze for sure.
Doug, you have an example of what Dave's talking about that you were telling us about before we hit record.
Oh, yeah. I found this story in Outside that was kind of going over the history of snooze that I think they published when they turned it Outside Business. But they were talking about the first issue that I highlighted in there included a Q&A that asked if specialty retail shops are dying, which is the same thing we're asking 40 years later. And supposedly it had the line, a ski rep will drive for 2 hours to get a line of Coke, but he won't go out of bed for a reorder.
No one does Coke anymore, you know? Maybe that's what we're missing.
No, it's ketamine.
When did that first issue come out, Doug?
1984.
There you go, folks. You want more proof of, the more things change, the more they stay the same. Are specialty retailers dying? We are asking back then. Yeah.
It is amazing, right? That was still 40 years ago. We're talking about the same thing.
Right. Hey, on the heels of this, Doug, you mentioned there was somebody else that you wanted to recognize this afternoon while we were chatting.
Oh, yeah. I think that, a year ago, my good friend, Rob Cupilillo was killed in a crevasse fall. And I just would like the industry to keep remembering Rob because he was such a great guy. And his sister just put out a remembrance of him online on her Facebook page. It's really quite beautiful. And for people who didn't know Rob, he was a climber, a biker, a comedian, a guide, a cook who influenced so many of us. And about a year ago, last May, I went to Iceland and skied the high point of Iceland. And at the top, I said a few words for Rob, for Roy Wallach, another guy in the industry, for my dad, and for a few other people I'd lost because he was someone who really made the mountains a better place.
Did you eat putrefied fish on that trip?
I did not on that trip. I'll only do that once. It's putrefied shark. It's called hakarl.
Sorry,
shark. It tastes like mucus and ammonia.
Awesome. Well, send me the link to that. We'll put it in the show notes. So to what the sister put up. Anything else on Bob?
I had something. I think that I really liked something that Michael Hodgson, who took over Snooze and was a good friend of his, wrote in his remembrance of Bob, and it was this: I know Woody was never one to waste too much time worrying about legacy. In the 8 years Therese and I ran Snooze before selling it to Active Interest Media, Woody never once spoke ill or with regret about anything we or I did with Snooze. And he never once told me, even in jest, that I shouldn't have done this, or I should have done that. Just not in his DNA.
That's great. Well, R.I.P. Bob Woodward. We appreciate it. Hopefully we're doing you justice by what we're doing over here. Doug, what's going on over on Open Container this week? This will come out on Friday. So next week, what's coming up on Open Container next week? What can you tease?
Next week, we were talking to Chris Goddard, a PR giant pioneer for outdoor PR, and I think also for women in the industry.
Awesome. Dave, what are you producing?
Colin, we're decompressing from 2 days at Functional Fabric Fair.
That's right. We're going to prior to this conversation, they're going to hear my thoughts on functional fabric and the value and the simplicity of an event. So there you go. All right. Well, thanks, boys. Thanks for spending a couple minutes talking about Bob Woodward. All right, we're going to wrap it up right there today. Coming back for a new episode on Monday. Check out the latest from the Rockfight Podcast Network, Open Container with the guy you just heard, Doug Schnitzbahn. The Rockfight is a production of Rockfight LLC. Our producer today was me. I'm the producer today. Art direction provided by, as always, Sarah Gensert. I'm Colin Shrew. Thanks for listening, and here to take us out, it's Krista Makes. He's going to sing the Rockfight fight song. We'll see you next time, Rockfighters.